Marla.
LOD is, thanks, Mark. So thank you, everybody. Welcome to our second meeting of the West East Express committee. Don't have a formal name for it. It's a stakeholder committee. Eric Lashinsky, Chief of Comprehensive Planning, as always. So we had our first meeting about a month ago, and we got through the eastern extension of the Poplar Trail. That's the kind of what we think about as the first phase of the West East Express, the portion behind the Graduate Hotel that starts at Calvert Street and ends at Taylor Avenue. So I know we ran out of time. We were getting into the improvements to the existing Poplar Trail. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we'll start looking at that. And if anyone has any questions or concerns, more general, just feel free to share. But the intent for this meeting, as all of our meetings will be, is really to look at the designs that we are putting together with our consultant from Mead and Hunt, who's not here tonight, but basically get input, and so what seems to make sense, what might need some reworking, and these are still very preliminary. I mean, these are layouts that show the course of the trail, but and they're dimensioned, but there's not a ton of detail here yet. So we're mostly looking at the alignment and the width and features along the trail. But let me orient you. I'm going to zoom in a bit more. So my computer is okay. So this is Taylor Avenue. You have the police station here. There's a new hotel going in right here under construction right now, and you have that service road right here that goes back behind the Graduate Hotel. What we're showing is the circle that, it's still not set in stone when this will be constructed. We're working with the hotel developer to do this, and we are anticipating this design, but this is not formalized yet. But this is the design that was worked out, and so the plan would be for the trail as it goes along the service road behind the Graduate Hotel to then come along this new sidewalk here, come up to a crossing north of the circle. And then if you go by this today, you can see this spur that's not highlighted is already in. So this, the older trail connection right here is still there. I don't know what our plans are, to be honest with. I would assume we would take that out so that we encourage people to use the new trail, the new crossing, and I would say that's our plan. But we need to show that on this, and then as you move through, there's what feels like a bridge. It's actually a gigantic culvert between these two stream valley areas.
Hey, Eric, can I come back to the crossing for a moment?
Yeah, absolutely.
And we may have talked about this a bit last time, but I'm a little concerned about the crossing that close to a circle where, somebody traveling north on Taylor and is, thinking about who else is in the circle, when do I go in, and all of a sudden, and if they're exiting to go north on Taylor, all of a sudden there's a crosswalk in front of them. And then you take the example of a trail user who's traveling east. Is somebody exiting the circle, going to be cognizant of a trail user coming across eastbound? So I just wonder if there's some treatment there. I'll channel Alex for a moment and say maybe like a raised
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
a raised crossing that would tend to slow traffic. Just, I don't know what the answer is, but I'm concerned about that crossing so close to the circle.
Why do you feel like you need to put a circle there anyway?
Well, this is actually a much bigger discussion. This discussion actually happened over several years because it's a really unsafe intersection, and it was actually I frankly was not involved in this, but I do think that this would be a safer design for this area. That it's just that the data shows that these types of configurations are far more safe than the alternatives, which would be a four-way stop or some other kind of configuration. But that's primarily the only reason why, like when you see roundabouts being installed in other places. I was just coming back from Western Maryland along 32 through Howard County. There's a ton of new roundabouts in all kinds of suburban locations, and it's primarily for safety.
Well, that's like the roundabout that's right at Southgate, where you can come up west and then you have a crosswalk to keep coming.
The Westgate Circle, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
The one, yeah, it's just off the screen here. But
that has the crosswalk pretty much the same way. So I assume what you're talking about is doing it the same way that crosswalk is.
I have to look at where that is located. I guess I could pull up. Let me actually pull up the Google map here and just take a closer look at that one. But I would say that roundabouts are not necessarily the best treatment for bikes and pedestrians. I mean, they are really designed for vehicular safety, I think, more often than not. But I should acknowledge there were two designs that were floated, because this gets into the weeds a little bit on this issue. But to do the circle, the city needed a portion of the what's called the Lowe's Access Road, Graduate Hotel Access Road now, but formerly Lowe's Hotel. We needed a portion of the end of this road, close to Taylor Avenue, to do that traffic circle. We essentially needed to acquire that piece of service road. Now we need a portion of it for the whole trail down the service road as well, but it's been complicated to get that piece of right of way. And so there was an alternative design that was created that would not have a traffic circle, and it would have kind of more restricted turns to basically provide safety in other ways. But
could you not also just do like they did in front of Bush Library?
Yeah, so that would be a good comment, because I think that the crossing, I don't know if I can let me hold on just a minute. Let me stop sharing my screen. I want to pull up, I think this is actually valuable to show you the alternative here so you can see. Let me find this. Hold on, just bear with me for one sec.
Well, while you're doing that, to Michelle's point, the crossings at Westgate Circle do have a different treatment. They have a pedestrian refuge in the center of the crossing. They have the red brick, and so they do have a somewhat different nature that might tend to slow the traffic. And so I just can't tell from the drawings if whether this would be similar. The other question would be the movement in and out of the new hotel, where that comes in on Taylor, or is that off the Graduate Road?
Yeah, bear with me for a sec here. I think in general, we're seeing an uptick in the number of locations where that kind of pedestrian crossing makes sense, because we have so many situations where it's easy to imagine drivers not seeing the pedestrians or the cyclists.
Sorry, where what kind of pedestrian crossing?
Oh, like the kind that Michelle was mentioning at the library, where that one has a flashing beacon, I believe. But just basic a refuge island in the middle.
Red light.
What'd you say?
I said it has a button. You push the button and it literally
Right.
makes it a red light. So the people have to stop.
Oh, right,
So-
right. Okay. Okay, let me share this.
So that
Found it.
treatment on West Street in front of the library, I think is kind of similar to on the BNA trail. They recently added a new pedestrian light on the trail where it crosses in the middle of Severna Park. I forget what road it crosses. Does anybody know what I'm talking about?
Robinson Road. I'm very intimately familiar with it.
Oh, well, I wonder what others think of. Like, I'm thinking of that as it's being suggested here. My experience of that crossing on Robinson Road is that it's the way that it's set up with the light is not optimal. In that, my experience has been multiple times that you go up to it and press the light, but the light doesn't actually change for cars very quickly. So then people are waiting, but then sometimes the cars just stop anyway to let you go because they're used to stopping to let pedestrians go there. And then it's just kind of silly. Then like you cross because some car stops for you, but then their light's going to turn red in another 30 seconds after you're gone. And I think based on my experiences, that's kind of like a step in the wrong direction where you end up annoying the trail users and the drivers that go across that intersection. And clearly, I'm sure that like $1 million was spent or something to build that. So I hope that we don't make the same mistakes on Taylor Avenue.
Yeah, that's
Sorry
the
if
same.
sorry if it's somebody's like baby and personal project that's on this call.
Well, they are really expensive to implement. And so, okay, well, so here's the alternative. And this, I think it's important to share because this probably a high likelihood that this might get built, not the circle in the short term, even though the city is committed to doing the circle in the long term. And there's a contribution that's coming from this hotel developer towards that. But it's just, it's been a complex situation, and we're trying to make an improvement at this in the short term using the same contractor that's doing the hotel in Orange here. And so this is what the alternative looks like, where you still have the crossing at the same location. You can see it looks a little screwy, but there is a narrowing of lane width coming up to that crossing from the north. So that's probably a good thing. But, I mean, it's, I could still see the potential for visibility issues. And, I think that is a legitimate comment that although we don't see the signage that would be here, and I would assume there would be the highly fluorescent crossing signage, but having a flashing crossing would probably be, if not a red light.
Now they have right, because if you've been to Rehoboth Beach anytime within the last few years, they have like, as soon as you walk up to it, the light starts flashing and then you cross the street and then it just stops. So you don't have to push a button or anything. I guess it has some kind of sensor.
And there's somewhat similar on Hilltop, right? Where there's a few pedestrian crosses on Hilltop that you push a button, it causes it to flash yellow, immediately, but you don't have to, pedestrians don't have to wait for something to turn red a minute later.
Right.
I think
The problem with that, though,
mind pushing a button, but yeah.
the problem with that, though, is leaving it this way, you still have the trouble with the curve and also the height difference going up. And you got to have a light going way earlier so the people coming up that hill, turning on that curve, are slowing down.
So where's the entrance to this hotel? Is it off of the Lowe's access road?
Yeah, it's right here. Yeah. So
I think it is worth saying too that nothing could be worse than where the pedestrian crossing is right now.
Yeah,
where the people are coming up the hill and around a curve. So the only advantage is that sometimes there's a police officer right there. But yeah, anyway, so I applaud the city's efforts to try to do something to improve this.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Well, I've noted the importance of the flashing beacon here, and and potentially also a speed table. I mean, I think this is going to be a pretty heavily used crossing for sure. So,
No.
Okay. Let me go back to this guy. So, I mean, by and large, the main idea as we move west here is we're widening the existing trail to 10 feet. You can see this dimension note here. It's pretty much consistent throughout. There's been some discussion we had a meeting with Germantown Homewood Civic Association. The idea of having some kind of an overlook in this location where you're sort of looking out onto it's pretty overgrown today, but this stream valley through here. I think Brian Callahan may have brought that up initially, and
it's like a 40-foot drop.
Yeah,
it's a nice vista.
Yeah, so we're not showing that yet, but I think that idea, has a lot of merit as a stopping point, along here.
You kind of look out down this valley, and you can see the cemeteries too.
Yeah. So as you move west, another thing that we're trying to do is add kinks in, not just to sort of add interest, but to slow folks down. That was a concern that we heard from the community that lives along here, that they are concerned about large groups of fast moving cyclists. I don't know how often that actually happens, but the concern is there, and we spend a lot of time with those folks kind of explaining the options to really slow traffic along the trail, and then really making the case this is a very different situation than the B&A trail. But the conflicts that exist today between cyclists and other users would be really best addressed by having a wider trail and markings that let people know this is a trail for multiple types of users.
Since you're making it so wide, are you not going to dedicate a bike lane and pedestrian lane?
Well, as of now, it's a shared use path. I think we can talk about, it'd be good to know what people think about having a center line. I think that helps quite a bit. It's not shown on here yet, but I think that's definitely a value. And we've added in a couple of mini roundabouts, which is just another way of adding interest along the trail, and ensuring that people kind of are slowing at places where there might be pedestrians accessing or other cyclists accessing the trail.
Eric, in the Netherlands, they paint a trail different colors for different uses. Pedestrians have one side, the bicycles have the other.
Right. Like the green they painted along Poplar there.
I don't think 10 feet is enough width for that.
It's not. Now, part of me wonders if we went to 12 feet and we had 4 feet dedicated for pedestrians, if that would make sense. But I don't know. I mean, I think it kind of comes down to the amount of use we think is going to be here, and whether that would be necessary or not. I mean, I think the thinking so far has been that 10 feet would really accommodate quite a lot of usage, and that putting these kinks in the trail and roundabouts and other stopping points would be sufficient to sort of ensure that people are riding responsibly and, not are going to be aware of pedestrians and other folks. But
how wide is the B&A trail? I mean, I think at the widest it's only 6, right? Or is it
No, it's
8?
10. It's 10. It's 10. Essentially all the county trails, B&A, WB&A, BWI Loop, they're all 10. Typically, I mean, there's some exceptions here and there at a pinch point maybe, but typically 10.
We're starting to drop in some amenity features along the way. I mean, I think you all have seen other trails in other places and the kind of opportunities we have. So that's something we're thinking about. If you have any thoughts on these kinds of complementary amenities, this is a good time to share them. But we have already received some requests, exercise equipment. I think a pizza oven was suggested by some folks living in this neighborhood, or basically a place to have it, picnic tables. But at this stage, we're really just trying to locate possible places where we could create these amenities. But
Eric, I don't know if this is I can't actually read the text on the little things that are on the side of the trail here, but I'll say, I say play place. So I don't know if this is part of any current thinking, but I think a water fountain would be fantastic. There's very few public water fountains. And if we're talking about people using this for recreation, I think that could be wonderful, as long as the city is willing to actually open the water fountain, unlike some other water fountains in city parks.
Yeah, I think that's a great suggestion. And this intersection here at Glen Avenue is definitely a hub. I think currently there's a community message board not far from this intersection, but all these lines, what you're seeing here, are design consultant looking at bus turning radius, make sure that anything we do here is going to be feasible. But this is another crossing location that can be pretty dangerous. And so right now, you can see this refuge, this island in the middle is an effort to tighten the lane width and make the crossing more visible. But this is another location where, I think because of this hill right here, I don't know, people tend to slow down a bit, but it's still not, it has the potential to be bad here. So,
well, there's a lot of trees coming right up to that, so you don't.
Yeah, right.
Somebody till they get right to in the road,
Yeah, that's true. And we were looking at the railing that's there today. There's a wood railing that also obscures the views. I think we are looking at ways to improve visibility there. Let's see.
Might be another place to consider John's suggestion of a raised crosswalk as well. I mean, I think anything
Yeah.
that can communicate that this is the priority for that small strip is trail users and not road users would be awesome.
Yeah.
Eric, the other thing while we're at Glen is what would be the preferred connection to the stadium trail? Because right now Glen Avenue itself,
Right.
I think, is sort of the preferred connection. Is there something better? If it's there, can Glen Avenue get some marking? We should really consider connectivity between this and other facilities like this, like the stadium trail. The other one that comes to mind is
Okay.
Cherry
Locust.
Cove.
Yeah.
Or Locust. From,
Yeah, this is Locust. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Locust gets a lot less traffic. So there's some value. I mean, you have a connection right here. I mean, that might be the better. It's a tricky question because Glen is the better connection south to the Spa Creek Trail.
Right.
When you get to Russell Street, but
Having spoken with lots of people who live on Glen, my impression is that they would be quite grateful for anything that slows traffic on Glen, like the raised crossing there. Do
you think, Kurt, that they would be interested in allowing parking only on one side, and then use that as the protection between a bike lane?
I don't know.
Parking
Parking is always the third rail.
Yeah. I assumed, especially with the stadium.
Right.
Yeah.
But if they want to slow traffic down, that's the way to do it.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk with our consultant, see what they have. But my inclination is to keep it at Glen just for clarity. You know, as somebody's moving from the south towards the stadium trail, but I don't know.
And I think there's already a marked crossing at the top of Glen and Cedar Park. There's a crossing there to go to the stadium trail, whereas from the top of Locust to the trail, there's no sidewalk on that side of the road. So then we're talking about adding another crosswalk on Cedar Park or building a sidewalk or some other project that won't happen.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
So yeah, not too much of note here. It's a lot of the same kind of treatment. Definitely trying to avoid major trees. We have another version of this that kind of shows where all the disturbance would be to existing trees, but we did a walk of this with our consultant and with some people who take care of the trees and other vegetation here, and kind of have a sense of what is more sacred.
Hey, Eric, just also make a note that Glen going the other direction, I think, is also the connection to the Spa Creek Trail.
Yeah, absolutely. That's
another thing that somewhat favors Glen as the yeah.
And then you have the Studio 39 school up here, and this is a potential. This is already kind of a sunken area that would be possibly formalized as a stormwater feature. That's something we have to still figure out, but stormwater management. The rule is anytime you add more than 5,000 square feet of new impervious coverage, you have to deal with stormwater issues. So that's the
Can I ask down there where we're just looking at, what is the preferred place for a bicycle commuter to ride? So, because I'm getting that the trail is kind of designed with extra kinks and mini circles that are there because the people in this neighborhood have some fear that there's going to be, hordes of speeding Peloton riders that are going to mow them down. But I gather they also, I don't know if anyone loves the green paint that's along the southern half of Poplar Avenue there. Like, is that going to? I'm just asking, like, what is the vision of if someone is using this as a way to commute to get across, not necessarily like doing a bike race? Is the intention for them to go on the trail and just not go very quickly, or is the intention for them to go on the street on Poplar Avenue and then kind of reconnect to the trail before the culvert at the other end?
Well, the intention is for them to use whatever they feel most comfortable using. We would certainly encourage them to use the trail, the widened trail, but there are access points to Poplar Avenue at multiple locations. So there was some discussion at one point of trying to move cyclists to Poplar Avenue. And I think it was a gentleman this is with the Germantown Homewood community. We had a few meetings, and there was a gentleman at one of the meetings who was like, well, you're still not going to know what people are going to do. I mean, you could do a lot to try to encourage people to ride on Poplar Avenue, but they could still ride on the trail. We're not going to be preventing them from riding on the trail. So what hampers us on Poplar Avenue is that, and this is why that green lane was never really finished. It only covers part of Poplar Avenue. As long as Poplar Avenue is a two-way street, we're really constrained width-wise to do something like that green lane. And it was a very contentious issue with our public works department to even start that project, because they felt very uncomfortable about taking some of the drive lane away, and basically encouraging drivers would have to ultimately drive on the green lane in some cases to avoid another car coming in the opposite direction. And so that it really, it made that design very challenging and not really possible.
But that part of Poplar Avenue is not a traffic heavy.
No, it's not. And that's why I think people who are commuting who just don't like the kinks in this, I mean, I don't think it's going to really slow people down that much, frankly, but people who really don't enjoy them can easily just jump onto Poplar. And I think those are going to be the cyclists who are.
That's what I see most of the time when I walk up and down the trail, especially if it's a group, bicycling, that then as soon as they see the green, they'll go off and they'll go down that. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, the plan is ultimately we are going to be probably painting over the green. And since it seems unlikely that we could run it the whole way down Poplar Avenue. And I think the question is, I mean, we can easily put shared lane markings on Poplar and treat it like what's called a bike boulevard or neighbor way sometimes, but that would be a very straightforward improvement. And that's probably most likely what would happen.
It feels more important to me to do that on the cross streets. Somebody that wants to ride in the road, like on the B&A trail, the guys that want to hammer, they jump off on Old County. There's no treatment. They're road riders. They want to hammer. They'll go to the road. They don't need any treatment. I think where we need the treatments, like a bike boulevard, are on the cross streets, like we talked about, where it's creating a network between this and other facilities. And by the way, the next one up is going to be Cherry Grove, because like somebody coming from Forest would come across Cherry Grove, use the little bridge, and you come across Cherry Grove, and then where's the best place to cross West Street and then get to Poplar. So get the consultants to keep thinking, where are the network connections for low stress walking and biking?
Just lost the crossing on North Cherry Grove or South Cherry Grove, where it goes across West Street, and the state pulled up the crosswalk. North Cherry Grove and West Street. There used to be a crosswalk there, and that's now gone. As part of the library when the library went in, the hawk that they put for crossing West Street. But it's a really good point. Like, it would be great to connect North Cherry Grove over to the other side and over to Forest. It'd be a nice connection.
Yeah, they took up 2 crosswalks. There was also a crosswalk painted at Locust Avenue on West Street, and they're both gone. They had the cute little flags that someone put there to help kids cross the road. And anyway, that was sort of my. If you sense that I had some negative reaction to the new crosswalk thing that it was built in front of the library, that's part of what that's coming from. Is it seems like it was.
Yeah.
Okay, there's one thing there with the light that you have to wait for versus 2 that were there before. So I always get nervous now when I'm hearing some suggestions of that. Not that I'm opposed to having some light with the crosswalk, but I hope that we don't give up something in the process. And I want to give more. I totally agree with John's point about thinking about the connections on the side roads. That's a really good point, John.
Yeah.
Hey, Eric, aren't we eventually going to have, the B&A, going to have the one way going down King George, but then the other one's going to go over by the stadium? Isn't it going to come down Taylor and get on there at that end?
Taylor.
So, our consultant on this project is actually working for Anne Arundel County on a separate project to bring add a off-street shared use path along Taylor on the I guess the east side of Taylor from Annapolis Street to Route Boulevard to basically connect from. I mean, we have another project that's sort of that missing link from the Navy Bridge that Brian's talking about to go from the Navy Bridge to Taylor and King George Street. And then there's Mead and Hunt is working on this Taylor Avenue connection, but it would just go to the stadium to the north, to the loop trail. It wouldn't continue down Taylor all the way to where we've been just talking about. It's just getting to the
stadium trail.
Yeah. So, and then
eventually we could get it to come all the way down.
Yeah, eventually. Yeah. I mean, I think that would make sense for Taylor to have that continuity, but somebody would either jump on the stadium trail at that point, or they're gonna have to, in the short term, they're gonna have to stay in the street, or but
the reason I brought that up is because if there is access to the trail on that end, the farther it is down this way, I think would be better. So you go through the cut through at Ceremony Coffee and go down to South Cherry Grove. And then that goes right all the way up back to the Poplar Trail, looking at the studio. What is it?
39.
Yeah. Or you could get off at the library there.
Right.
Yeah. No, I mean, Cherry Grove is definitely a critical corridor here. I mean, the fact it goes all the way to Forest Drive is really important. So I'm noting the markings and the signage needed to really reinforce those.
Yeah, you would want wayfinding signage that shows people where the network connections are, so that those become the preferred routes, even on a low stress road that has no bike markings or anything. It would still be great to have wayfinding that sort of guides people there, and then the drivers become more accustomed to seeing cyclists there and so forth.
Yep. Let me go up to where we hit after Cherry Grove. Let me get all the way over now. Sorry, my computer is not that big of a file, but so yeah, here we're coming up to Germantown Elementary, I believe. Yeah, and you can see that this is the way the Mead and Hunt is trying to improve the connections to these existing trails at the end. There's a workout area. I think there's been some discussion of a exercise area for some time now, but I thought it was in this location right here. I don't know.
Travel area, yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember why. I don't know that we told Mead and Hunt about that. I think they were just looking for, but that's already kind of an impervious area right here. So maybe they were thinking this might be a stormwater opportunity. I'll ask them about that because that's
Yeah, moving that workout area further west, where there's a bunch of open space where, past that circle on the path you sort of pointed out earlier. That's sort of, I think, owned by the city. They use it for maintenance and stuff sometimes, but that would be better because there's fewer neighbors looking at it, and folks might not want to look out at the workout area every day.
Speak for yourself.
Yeah, that's really just offices there. That's not, I can't really see anything.
Venice Beach on the Poplar.
So it's pretty straightforward through here. I think the issue as we get onto Poplar Avenue and this part of, kind of moving towards Pearl Heights here, one of the issues that comes up is that there's some, I'm trying to think where it is. It's really, there's not many impacts to the street here. Everything's pretty much staying consistent in terms of lanes. There's a little bit of a bump out into the street, I believe, but it's pretty minimal.
Isn't
then
that blue line what changes?
Oh, you're right. So you're right.
Because the current street, you can see underneath it.
Is there any buffer in between the trail and the street there?
There's about
No.
3 foot right now, but I don't know what it's going to be after you take the 10 foot.
This is a good question to ask me and Hunt, because I think you're right, Brian, that this blue line would represent the new
Yeah.
lane. And it looks like then there would be some kind of a buffer here, but I don't know what that would be.
It gets just narrow where the punch out is, but then actually when you go further to the left, it's pretty narrow too.
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole street's narrow. We don't have any on-street parking.
Just don't have the room. Just for that little section, that one block.
And we get a lot of traffic there, a lot.
That's going to be one of our biggest challenges is that intersection.
Mm-hmm. With Admiral Drive. Or coming,
Yeah.
One thing that's
there?
What'd you
Where are
say?
Where are you at now? Is that Cooksville?
So this is we're coming to this is Admiral right here.
The church.
Yeah. So this is something we have to talk to the church about this, because the issue here is there's utilities that we're trying to avoid impacting, and so
Very remote.
yeah, I mean we
Our
are
poles that
definitely
falling down, sparking.
What'd you say? What?
Our electric poles that are constantly having issues and sparking because they're so old.
Is that right? Well, I know the ones on West Street have that issue, but I didn't know. I mean,
the same.
we generally try to take the path of least resistance, but I think that this crossing here with the island was put in many years ago, I guess, and that because people go to church and this is the way they go, this is where the sidewalk is, and they to cross over, that's how they go. And to basically avoid the utilities, we're pushing out into the street in such a way that
on curves, which is
What'd you
the
say?
only I said, and taking away our calming curves, which is the only thing that slows the cars down.
Yeah. So that's, I mean, that's a question. Like, you know, the lane is going to be very narrow through here, but is that going to be enough? And
No.
I mean, we can definitely see if there's other types of calming that we could, but I don't know. I mean, it's
I wonder if the Honda dealership would sell us their last 10 back feet there.
Yeah, there's no cars in that lot now.
Where those plants are.
Yeah.
If we had all that.
I don't think that's like, it's, I mean, I think that would help, but I think it's that Mead and Hunt is really just trying to avoid this power line right through here. I think that they're trying to
like put the, if you could split the trail between and have the power line in the center, because that trail from Admiral Drive to Germantown Elementary, that's constantly kids going back and forth to school, kids, parents, strollers, you know, and not just in the school time. It's, you know, in the summertime still, I guess they're doing some kind of summer camps at the school. So I still see them, you know, in the mornings and afternoons coming back and forth. So that gets a lot of children, families going on that stretch. So I like, if you were going to do anywhere where it's like, you really need a pedestrian area, because like the kids, you know, they have like my neighbor alone, she has 3 kids, plus she has 2 that she's watched. So she can't hold on to them all when she's walking down that trail. So if you have somebody coming along with a bike and, you know.
I pulled it up on Google Maps, like Street View. I think what Brian says, if you could get the right of way, even up to the fence line, you could go, the power lines would be on your right-hand side on the trail. Looks like there's like more than enough space to get back there.
So this, I was going to ask the question a second ago. I would just wonder if we've reached out to the community of students and parents at Germantown Elementary and asked them what would be most helpful for them. Like, I would love to see if part of this whole project could see more kids using that trail to get to school and feeling safe to do that. And I'm just wondering what Michelle just mentioned a few things, but I'm wondering if we have any idea of what the input is from parents of what they want to see, or where are areas that could be better served to provide a way to get safely to the school.
It's too bad we don't have a sidewalk on the other side of the street. I thought when they built houses, they maybe put a sidewalk in. I mean, they do now, but I guess they did when they built these. Because if they had a sidewalk all down that other side, then all the walkers could be on that side, and the kids riding the bikes to school could bike trail.
But then the problem is when they get to Glendale, they have to cross there. And cars coming around that corner, they come quick around that corner.
Yeah.
So see, so the pole's like right on the edge of where the trail is now, and then you have the trees on the other side. So like the pole can split in the middle of the trail. You don't want to take the pole.
That's an interesting idea.
There's trees are just popping up the trail now anyway. So they're always in our face when we walk down it. And
it's not a bad idea. I wonder why Mead and Hunt didn't think about that, kind of splitting it like that, because I could see the value of that.
I was just going to say one other quick thing while you have that view up is some kind of vertical separator instead of just a curb, because it, you know, especially for kids, to have nothing but a curb between the trail and the cars is not enough separation. Where you have adequate buffer, like 3-4 feet of grass, that's one thing. But here, you know, where right now it's right up against the curb. If it's going to be like that, in order to get width, then I would suggest a jersey wall, something.
there's a bus stop there too. For kids in school, when they're in school, the school bus picks them up and drops them off there.
I think the drawing had that on there, but maybe not. Yeah, if we bought that last 10 feet of the Honda dealership, we could actually have the buffer separation that John's talking about the whole way to the corner.
Yeah.
Called eminent domain. We don't have to buy it.
I'm
Just kidding.
Money.
Sorry.
You still have to buy it. You just don't have to ask.
But that's, Brian, I mean, that's a great point. I mean, I think, like, I see what you mean. I mean, you just go around the trees.
Right, and then you don't have to make the street smaller than what it already is. That's
Yeah.
Well, just to
Okay.
your point, Michelle, I don't know if the traffic engineers can say more about this, but it stands to reason. It sounds like it's a little bit of a contradiction. If the goal is to have cars go more slowly down this road, having a more narrow road, I think will also accomplish that, or should.
No, I'm going to tell you it's not, because the road's not that wide now. But they have two sets of calming curves, one right when you come around the corner and then one further up by Gross. So I'm the second house from Glendale. And so I hear the cars, I work from home, I sit here, I'm looking at Poplar Fair, I'm looking at what we are right outside my window. And those cars come and constantly hit those calming trails. Like they had the signs up high, they were knocking off people's rear view mirrors all the time. So now they put the signs down low so that they don't constantly lose their, but that's literally the only thing that slows them down is those calming curves. So taking those away is like, I don't, because then they also come from down Glendale and come around that 90-degree curve onto Poplar like there's no tomorrow.
Well,
And
we'll
we
look
have
at
parking on our street already. So it's like when somebody comes to deliver something, they're already trying to stop in the street. Cars are trying to go around and stuff. So it's.
So we'll definitely look at this further and see what else we can come up with. I think trying to use some of this other space here would probably make sense. And then Admiral is this other crossing challenge where I think we definitely need something significant here, substantial. This probably would be a great spot for a raised crossing or a flashing beacon.
Maybe a traffic circle there if you could manage that, but there's no way you're going to get the room for
It's
that.
the buses that make it challenge. I think Mina looked at that, and the bus radius and it's really challenging.
Would getting a raised crossing be like an act of God from the city?
Yeah, our public works department is not really excited about those. I think they do get where we can connect is on safety issues. I mean, they definitely take safety seriously, but I think this kind of situation would be really relevant for that. So
if you're going to do it for the first time in the city, I feel like this is a good project to do.
Well, I'm definitely concerned about anything. This intersection is already pretty fraught with motorists,
right?
That are like, especially at times when the school is active or Navy Stadium things of people trying to turn left and right out of Poplar onto Admiral Drive with just a stop sign. And so even like, I don't know, I love the idea of a raised crosswalk too, but I'm concerned about, someone that's waiting to turn left onto Admiral Drive, then they finally get their chance, but suddenly there's a pedestrian in the crosswalk that they're not necessarily looking there because they're looking to find a gap in the cars. And I guess I'm just agreeing with you, Eric, that I think this is like beyond just the trail, but if the extension of the trail, which I think would be great, and I hope it actually happens, going, on the power line west here, you're talking about adding more vulnerable road users to the mix in this
Mhm.
intersection, which is already maybe past its capacity of what it can do with one stop sign. So I don't know, because I'm not a traffic engineer, but I assume that someone is, and I hope that they might think about what's the solution. Maybe it's a light. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm sure
I
that
mean,
would be bad.
yeah, I don't know if we've looked at the light, the possibility of a signal here, and it might be necessary. I mean, I agree that that left turn from Poplar onto Admiral is probably one of the most worrisome situations, because you're right, and they're right when they get their chance to turn, there could be people crossing right there, and they're going to be stuck in the intersection, and that's just going to be really problematic. So, and I don't know that we would restrict that left turn, but
Well, I mean, there's a crosswalk there now, you know, and it's heavily used, and yeah, almost everybody who's used it on a regular basis at a near miss.
Yeah, I haven't seen it be a problem. I don't know if anybody else has, and I walk it, I drive it all the time, because I live right next door to the church. So do you have like a list of options that we can look at and think on for traffic calming or things like that, so we can, as we use this intersection regularly, we can think on it? But yeah, right now that crosswalk, I haven't seen it be an issue in my experience so far.
That's interesting to hear. I mean, we could ask Mia Hunt to kind of provide like some examples of the various strategies that are typically used. I think that could be good, and we'll ask them to do a few iterations here. They generally are looking at very progressive things, and then they always get nervous about whether the city is going to allow them to do it. And so, you know, I think this is a situation where I think we do need to go big. But it's not like, maybe there might not be an issue today, but I think with just a higher volume of trail users, I think inevitably we're going to get more chances for injuries.
Well, that's why I thought, like, here they would just get rid of the trees and use that space rather than trying to reconstruct the whole street.
Yeah, now we'll look at that, but I think I'm just talking about the crossing at Admiral, that alone. But I mean, if you get across, it gets a lot easier because we have far fewer conflicts on the other side. And what we're looking at is a ramp up to get to this higher elevation, and then you can see this. I think this is the bus stop here, and so
I'm just wondering about a three-way stop sign, and the intersection I have in mind that's somewhat like this is near the B&A trail at Jones Station Road, where the Rite Aid is, where there's now a connector trail that is the connection over to the Broadneck Trail. It's a four-way stop. The intersection of Jones Station Road and B&A Boulevard is a four-way stop. And the fact that you have a trail crossing, it slows all the traffic, and everyone's got to stop. And so if there's somebody waiting to cross on foot or on bike, they get their turn. Now, it'll annoy the drivers who are used to, blasting through Admiral Drive here, but it certainly would be a safety benefit for drivers and trail users.
Well, it's a short block between Poplar and West Street, and it gets backed up. Like, I think if you did a three-way stop there, that would be backing up to West Street.
I gotcha.
Well, that was my concern about the traffic signal, but the three-way stop might move faster than the signal would really back up, I think, but I don't know. It's a traffic engineer question, I guess, but
you have to time the
light. You might be right. What?
You'd have to time the light on West Street so that it's green there and people making that left don't get hung up.
And interestingly, it might not annoy drivers as much as you might think, because the drivers that are used to turning left there onto Admiral Drive will have an easier time doing that if there's a stop sign. And the backups that always happen when the school is is starting or ending, might be less, but yeah,
Right.
Traffic from the stadium games. Yeah.
We'll definitely suggest these options to Mead and Hunt and see what they think.
Eric, I had a maybe slightly off-topic question. I was writing this trail last night after the Annapolis Blues game. Is there any plans for lighting that's when the trail is not like perpendicular to a street? Like that spot where you're talking about an overlook by the police station.
Oh yeah,
pitch black.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, so we were talking about so far all of the improved lighting is just going to be in places where we already have some electric power poles, or where we can easily attach some down. And we are actually talking about improved lighting in different sections, but that section, I mean, that's a good comment, because I don't know that we don't have anything drawn up yet for lighting along that stretch, but that's a good point. And I'm sure that area probably gets pretty dark currently. I don't know. Is it lit? It's not lit currently.
No, it's like pitch black. And last night when people were leaving the Blues game, everyone was just walking in the dark.
Yeah.
Or if we're looking at this big project, that would definitely be an ask that I would try to include.
There must be some solar options that would work in those areas where there's no access to electricity. I would imagine there's got to be some new solar public grade type lighting.
The high wires go all the way down the trail.
That's true. I mean, I think there's probably a power pole not too far from. I don't actually think running the conduit, the connection, would be that challenging. And those I mean, we can look at current technologies that might not require the lines, but I don't think it would be that challenging. And that's a good comment. We have not done a full sort of lighting analysis of where the dark spots are, but if anybody has sort of intimate knowledge, I mean, that I'm noting that location by the by the police station, but
I don't think you're probably going to need it on parts that are perpendicular to the roads that already have lighting, but the sections that don't, if we want people to use this like after games at the stadium, or eventually going all the way to the town center and like getting groceries or something after work, it'd probably be nice to have lights for the dark.
Well, and I wonder if that's an issue that should be considered on the section we're looking at right here, where there's nothing there right now.
Yeah.
I think all the way along it, the lighting needs to be improved.
I think it would be great to have something like hip high, kind of Ballard looking lights that just shine down so the neighbors don't have to see all the light, and have it all the way up and down this.
Yeah, definitely have to be sensitive to the people who live next door. Well, so this is pretty straightforward, but we would be sort of dropping down. The grade changes right here, so this kind of goes down. It's kind of a ramp down to slightly lower.
Maybe back out a little bit, get a bigger picture so that some of these guys can see where we're at. So you got the Haka on one side.
Yeah, this is Annapolis Gardens right here.
Are there any connections planned to that neighborhood, to the Annapolis Gardens neighborhood there?
Yeah, so I don't know if it's reflected. I guess we're onto another sheet now, but there's just off to the left of this sheet, I think on the next sheet, it might show.
Yeah, we were talking about it.
There's a small parking area in Annapolis Gardens that has. This is definitely, we need some more. So this is
there.
This is where there should be a connection right here to Annapolis Gardens, but we definitely need some input on where the connections could be to West Street, I think. Especially there's this very long stretch along this warehouse here, where, that might change into something else in the future, but for the present time being, it's a really long stretch of no access. And I feel like there was a comment, it was a property somewhere along here that somebody had thought, maybe not with this group, but somebody had suggested a possible connection. I don't know. But this is basically a long, straight stretch of 10-foot wide trail, with no, and I think it's important to have some connection. It comes out of Gibraltar, and this is the extent of what we've laid out so far. But we've been talking to these property owners at Gibraltar. Both sides are very much on board this project. We're sort of threading the needle between those properties, but it works. And then we have to figure out after Gibraltar. I think we can go back to talking about the rest of this, but I just want to say that we do plan to continue it all the way to Route 2. We just want to bring the state of Maryland on board, because they run West Street, MDOT SHA, and it's really a challenging corridor for us to do anything without them really on board. So we're trying to initiate that process with them so that they can, I think rather than shoehorning this trail alongside the sidewalk along West Street, that maybe there's some more holistic thinking about West Street, in terms of the lane widths of the vehicular lanes. And but right now it's pretty challenging after Gibraltar. In this phase, we might go to, there's a trail that you might be familiar with right here, that goes to this new apartment complex and the Monarch School. So we may go all the way to there, but that's where the project for the time being will probably end. But yeah, I think lighting throughout this whole section is pretty key, and figuring out if there's a way to get from
There's the good spot. Go down a little bit farther towards towards Admiral. It's the property that has just one pink house on West Street, and then it's grass.
But that, I think they might have just sold that pink house.
Really?
He had a sign out there for sale, and now it's gone. And I've seen some stuff that looks like.
Hang on, I got Google Earth on another window.
This is area.
That's
Now it's down further to the right.
Yeah. It's right across from the Starbucks. That's not far off. That's not far from that.
Right. Well, I think William Rouse related to the guy that lives or owns that.
There it is.
There it is.
Yeah, go back.
But
that's not getting you very far down the trail either. I would think down by the Burger
right
King.
Here, right?
No, it's farther to the right.
Yeah, it's not far from Admiral Drive. Yeah,
it's across
from it's this one right here.
Right
yeah,
there it is. Yeah,
he
had that
to make that a park.
I think he just sold.
I'm gonna look into that.
But down by where the
you could use it with open space money, Eric.
Yeah, yeah.
Make a park. It's a perfect reason for it.
This could
Well-
also be if there's some, I assume that there's some entity within the city government that's about like supporting and encouraging business opportunities and stuff. I mean, it seems like there's no shortage of people that want to open bars and coffee shops and things like that in the city of Annapolis. And if this could be pitched to someone as, I think this is something that doesn't exist right now, but along this whole trail,
Oh, yeah.
there's no other place to build something like that. But here's a place where you have basically the backs of parking lots and like auto body stores, which is presumably dirt cheap real estate, commercial real estate.
Mhm.
I'm not an entrepreneur, but if yeah, the next time somebody walks into City Hall and says, I want to do something, they could be pointed in this direction as you can look at other trail systems around the county where there's been success with businesses that back up onto the trail.
Yeah. Well, I think we're definitely anticipating that when the trail is in, that it's going to change some of the thinking about what is appropriate here, and what can sort of be facing the trail-oriented development, I guess. But I mean, we're going to keep our eyes, ears open for potential opportunities.
The place where the Bill's Barbecue Pit, the Greek restaurant that got hit by the tornado, like they haven't done anything with it. And I think it's for sale now.
Chris's charcoal pit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think any kind of redevelopment that's residential or mixed use, we will definitely be advocating for a trail connection. You can be assured of that, and not just that, we will be requiring it. We have some leverage with our adequate public facilities requirements, and so that's a pretty certain thing. I think it's hard to predict when certain things are going to happen. And I mean, even when you think certain sites would make a great something else, it's amazing what people will sometimes just do the most conservative thing, and it's hard to predict what will happen. But this might be a possibility. This little green corridor here, I don't know.
Sold that. He had the sign up there, like he was selling it.
Burger King's property.
Yeah. It's I mean, it wouldn't necessarily put you in a great spot when you hit West Street, but just looking for the just some access. Well,
my understanding is the owner, Sherwin-Williams, was open to allowing an easement.
That's right. Phil, that came up when we met over at Annapolis Gardens.
Yep. Bob, the former Germantown Association president, said that conversation had happened and put that on my list to follow up. Just haven't done it yet.
That's good. It's a
great place.
Right next to the Burger King. Mm-hmm. Right. And then that's the lot that's for sale or whatever. I don't know if that's safe. That building's definitely not. It's fenced off.
Yeah. Well, that's helpful to hear. We can try to follow up. I think having at least one connection somewhere between Gibraltar and Admiral to West Street is pretty key, but it seems like we have a few possibilities here. So
the other key thing in the discussion with SHA is no matter which way we go, we're not done until we've gotten to the other side of 2.
Right.
And that is theirs also.
Yeah.
Even though I know we're in the county, we're in the county now, not in the city, but the project's not done until we've gotten it across 2.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So Eric, I know that there was that study that compared 3 different development options, and it said West Street would be the most efficient. But I kind of disagree because I think that even though Admiral Drive would be like maybe more expensive to go down and connect to the existing bike trail that goes by the prisons and already connects to the medical center. You know, I don't think they evaluated all the engineering options of how to put that bike lane in. And West Street is going to be extremely uncomfortable for most bikers to go down. Even pedestrians and drivers probably try to avoid West Street if they can. And the study like really underrepresented what the comfort of the bicyclist would be on West Street, I think. So I would say throw that report out, but I think that there are problems with Admiral Drive, but I think if you did some sort of elevated bike path in certain areas to alleviate where they wanted you to build that retaining wall to protect the things, I just think there are other options that could have been considered there.
I agree with you partially. I mean, because I was driving along Admiral recently, and I was noticing that if you kept the trail at a higher elevation, it did look like there was a level area that you could continue on. I mean, I think one of the things I was involved in that process and that the county led, and what we were ultimately saying is there's both of those options are viable. They sort of do different things, you know. I think we were trying to get to a preferred alternative, that they're kind of apples and oranges in a way. You know, the ability to continue on West Street would really provide better access to retail and some other destinations. And Admiral Drive gets you to some other destinations too, but it's more of a recreational route. I don't know. It seemed that the West Street corridor would really serve more people, would really connect to more residents. But I don't know that we're not throwing out the idea of having improved corridor along Admiral. It's just we're trying to also improve West Street too. So we kind of thought, well, maybe the fact that we have federal funding for this project that's really allowing us to get pretty far, and we thought that we could leverage that to get the state to do something more ambitious along West Street. Not the design that was shown in that county plan, I agree, was really going to be pretty stressful for any cyclist. And not realistic. It was sort of just widening the sidewalk and going across a lot of driveways into businesses. And so I think we definitely need something more ambitious along there for it to be viable, you know?
Yeah, and the mix of the businesses along West Street, I mean, even just that one section we were just looking at, you have Exxon, you have a car wash, you have, you know, places to get your car repaired, fixed, or buy a new car, or have your oil change, all in that one corridor. Those aren't places that bicyclists really frequent, you know. So those businesses are already being served by the road there. So, I mean, there was some stuff further down, sure, but you know, the composition.
Here we had room everywhere except for where the bike doctor is.
Yeah, that's the irony. It's like the owner of the building where the bike doctor is really set on holding on to these crazy parking spaces here. I don't blame him. I mean, it adds value to his property, but they would never allow those today if this building was proposed. So we partly want the state to intervene and try to make some sense of this. Yeah, it's just like such a short, I know this is a little screwy through here, but after this forested area, I mean, it's just such a short distance to get. We were also looking at a potential signal at Old Solomon's, and our public works department is definitely supportive of that. We haven't spoken to the state about that, but that would enable a better crossing at Old Solomon's, and you have plenty of space down that to get to Somerville, and you have plenty of space on Somerville, and so that's the other alternative, which I think we could do much more easily than the West Street in the short term.
Yeah,
So
that's
I
an
think that's
idea.
what, yeah.
Mhm.
But there's
Yeah, but a signal, it's a non-starter without a signal at West
yeah,
Street.
yeah.
And I feel you, Jonathan, on Admiral Drive, but that hill is a beast. I take the traffic on West Street over those hills any day.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah. Yeah. Gotta have an e-bike for that one, I'm afraid.
You have to declare that before the meeting. So we know where you're coming from. Well, we're pretty much close to 8 o'clock. I think this has been a productive meeting. I took a lot of notes that we'll convey to our consultant, and I think I'll try to get them at the next meeting. I think it's going to be more productive for them to be here, and I don't think that would be a big deal. So, but I think what we'll plan to have is some iterations at some of these intersections. I think that's the big, that was the
Stop
theme
sharing
for
your
tonight.
screen,
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Good call. But
just so we can all see each other before we go here.
I think the theme for tonight was intersections that are challenging. And I think that's would you say? No. So I think that's what we'll probably be able to come back with at the next meeting and talk about those. And then I think lighting was another thing that I think we do need some kind of plan that shows the overall lighting scheme. You know, where is it going to be? Where do we have lighting today, or and what kind of lighting? So that's
Get some of those cool ones that turn purple after a couple months. Everybody likes those a lot.
A Ravens fan.
we don't even have to request that.
Right, they can just give them
happen
to
automatically.
Hey, Eric, just one other thing. The places in the trail where there's like a little trail traffic circle, there's like a little, I just want to make, the B&A once upon a time had bollards, and they were there to prevent ATVs and stuff from going on the trail. But they were supposed to be for safety, and they turned out to be a big hazard, and they're all gone. I just want to make sure whatever those treatments are don't become hazards to trail users, that somebody's
That's a
not paying
great point,
attention
John.
and they go straight into it. Because trail crossing, even a four-way trail crossing, people stop, people yield. You don't really need traffic calming for the trail users necessarily. So I just want to make sure if it's aesthetically pleasing, and as long as it's not introducing a safety hazard, is my only worry.
Yeah.
So I think one of the inspirations for those was that on the College Park trolley trail, they have something similar to that, and they're not raised roundabouts, they're just painted roundabouts. But I think the idea here there would be some kind of raised thing. So we'll talk about that. I think that's a good point, that it definitely could be a hazard. I don't know exactly what the design was going to look like in 3 dimensions, but at some point we saw those precedents from trolley trail. All right, noting that. Okay.
I want to apologize to everybody for being late. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Brian in the mayor's office. I got here about 20 minutes late today.
Better late than never, Brian. Better late than never.
Brian, who?
Nah, Callahan.
So I docked you on the attendance sheet.
All right.
I was a couple minutes late too, actually. So,
I have to run. Thanks.
Yeah, thank
Eric.
you all. Appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody.
Good
Bye.
meeting, thanks.
Appreciate the input.
See you on